Tonight, dear friend, we gather in the quietude of twilight, where the last golden threads of day weave themselves into the deep indigo tapestry of night. Here, in this sacred pause between waking and dreaming, we find ourselves drawn to ancient wisdom that has comforted countless souls across the centuries. Before we begin this gentle journey together, if you find solace in these quiet moments of reflection, feel free to subscribe to our Sanctuary of Peace. Offer a gentle like as you would light incense in a temple, and share in the comments below where in this beautiful world you're listening from tonight. Your presence here creates a Sangha, a community of seekers, stretching across continents and time zones, all united in this moment of shared stillness. Imagine, if you will, a Buddhist monk walking slowly along a forest path at dusk. His bare feet make no sound on the moss-covered stones. Around him, ancient trees stand like silent sentinels, their branches reaching toward a sky painted in soft purples and grays. The air carries the faintest fragrance of jasmine and sandalwood, while somewhere in the distance, a temple bell rings. Once, twice, 3 times each note dissolving into the approaching night like ripples on a still pond. This is where we find ourselves tonight, dear listener, on this path of gentle inquiry, where the mind learns to release its burdens as naturally as a lotus drops its petals into sacred waters. Tonight, we explore the ancient practice of mantras, those sacred syllables that have guided Buddhist practitioners toward inner peace for over 2 millennia. But we approach these teachings not as scholars or theologians, but as weary travelers, seeking rest, as restless hearts yearning for stillness, as modern souls drawn to timeless wisdom that whispers, peace is possible. Peace is here. Peace is now. The incense curls upward in perfect spirals, carrying our intentions toward the infinite sky. Asterisk, what is the sound of peace before thought arrives to name it? This gentle riddle floats through our awareness, like morning mist over a mountain. Lake, neither demanding an answer nor offering easy solutions. It simply exists, this question, patient as a stone Buddha, weathered by countless seasons, inviting us to pause at the threshold between knowing and unknowing in the soft darkness of your resting place. Allow this mystery to settle around you like a comfortable blanket. There is no urgency here, no need to solve or understand. Instead, we rest in the space between question and answer, in that fertile silence where wisdom grows like wildflowers in an untended garden. If we were to let go of everything, every worry, every plan, every identity we've carefully constructed, what would remain? This is not a fearful emptying, but rather like a gentle clearing of clouds to reveal the ever-present sun. The Buddhist masters speak of this letting go not as loss, but as homecoming, a return to that which was never truly absent, only temporarily obscured by the busyness of our thinking minds. Picture, if you will, a single drop of morning dew balanced on the edge of a blade of grass. For a moment, it holds the entire world in its crystalline surface sky. Earth, light, shadow, all perfectly contained within something so small, so temporary, so utterly complete. Then, with the gentlest touch of breeze, it releases its hold and becomes one with the earth, losing nothing, gaining everything. This is the nature of our inquiry tonight. We are that dewdrop, perfectly whole in our temporary form, yet destined for a greater unity that asks nothing of us except our willingness to let go when the moment is right. In the forest of the night, silence speaks more eloquently than words. Ancient Zen masters understood this paradox, that the deepest teachings often arrive not in the thunder of profound pronouncements, but in the whisper-soft recognition of what has always been present. They would sit beneath stars that had witnessed the rise and fall of empires, breathing in rhythm with the cosmos itself, discovering that the peace they sought was not somewhere else, not in some future moment of enlightenment, but here, now, in the simple act of being present to what is . As we begin our exploration of Buddhist mantras, we carry this question like a gentle companion. What remains when all the noise falls away? The answer, if it can be called an answer, reveals itself not through thinking, but through the gradual settling of the mind into its natural state of spacious awareness. Listen. Can you hear it? The sound of peace that exists before the first thought of morning, after the last worry of evening, in the tender space between one breath and the next. This is where our mantras will take us, not to somewhere new, but to somewhere we have never truly left, a home we carry within us like a secret garden, always accessible, always welcoming us back with infinite patience and unconditional love. Asterisk, asterisk, like soft rain falling on thirsty earth, wisdom arrives not as conquest, but as nourishment. In the gentle darkness of your sanctuary, imagine walking through an ancient monastery garden where cherry trees bloom beside weathered stone tablets. Here, carved in Sanskrit and Pali scripts worn smooth by centuries of touch, rest the teachings that have guided countless souls toward inner peace. Yet tonight, we approach these sacred words not as scholars deciphering texts, but as tired hearts seeking comfort, as restless minds yearning for the balm of understanding. The Buddha himself, sitting beneath the Bodhi tree over 2,500 years ago, discovered something profound in the pre-dawn stillness, that suffering and peace are not imposed upon us by external circumstances, but arise from the very nature of how we relate to our experience. This recognition bloomed within him like a lotus opening to the first light of dawn, and from this awakening flowed the gentle teachings we carry with us tonight. Consider the first noble truth, arriving not as harsh judgment, but as the soft acknowledgement of a mother recognizing her child's tears. Life contains suffering, the Buddha observed, not with pessimism, but with the same tender honesty with which we might acknowledge that winter follows autumn, that all things change, that even the most beautiful sunset must eventually surrender to night. This truth is not meant to discourage us, but rather to validate what every heart already knows. That difficulty is woven into the very fabric of existence. And in acknowledging this, we find not despair, but profound relief. How many nights have you lain awake, dear listener, wondering why life feels so challenging, believing that your struggles mark you as somehow deficient? The Buddha's first teaching whispers gently into this darkness. You are not broken. You are not failing. You are simply human, participating in the universal experience that connects you to every person who has ever drawn breath beneath these same stars. The second truth arrives like dawn light, creeping over mountains soft, inevitable, illuminating. This suffering has a cause, the teaching continues. And here we discover something remarkable. The primary source of our mental anguish is not the circumstances themselves, but our relationship to them. It is not the rain that disturbs our peace, but our insistence that it should be sunshine. Not the ending of things we love, but our demand that they remain forever unchanged. Not the arising of difficult emotions, but our resistance to feeling them fully and letting them pass like clouds across an open sky. Picture a child's hand grasping tightly to sand at the beach, watching helplessly as the grains slip through her fingers despite her desperate efforts to hold them. The sand itself causes no pain. It is the grasping, the clinging, the futile attempt to make permanent what is inherently flowing that creates suffering. This is tanha, the thirst, the craving, the endless reaching for what we don't have, the pushing away of what we don't want. But here, like a gentle hand touching a fevered brow, comes the third truth. Asterisk, asterisk, there is an end to suffering. Not through achieving perfect circumstances, not through eliminating all difficulties from life, but through a fundamental shift in how we dance with the changing nature of existence. This is nirvana, literally meaning extinguishing or blowing out. Not the extinction of life, but the gentle extinguishing of the flame of endless craving that burns within the heart. Imagine sitting by a campfire on a cool evening, watching as the flames gradually settle into glowing embers, then into the peaceful darkness of ash and starlight. The fire hasn't been violently snuffed out, but has naturally completed its cycle, leaving behind not emptiness, but a different kind of fullness, the spacious contentment of a mind at rest out, and finally, like a path emerging from morning mist, the fourth truth reveals itself. There is a way. The Eightfold Path stretches before us not as rigid commandments, but as 8 aspects of wise living that support each other like the spokes of a wheel or the petals of a flower. Right understanding, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, right concentration, each element flowing naturally into the next, creating a way of being that is both practical and profound tonight. As we prepare for sleep, we need not master all 8 aspects at once. Instead, we simply rest in the knowing that this path exists, worn smooth by millions of feet over thousands of years, leading not away from our human experience, but deeper into its heart, where we discover that what we thought was our burden is actually our doorway to awakening. The ancient teachings settle around us like snow on a quiet mountain, transforming the familiar landscape of our minds into something pure, peaceful, and infinitely spacious. The ancient teachings settle around us like snow on a quiet mountain, transforming the familiar landscape of our minds into something pure, peaceful, and infinitely spacious. Dot in this gentle darkness. Feel how these timeless truths are not foreign, concepts to be learned, but homecomings to be remembered. They speak to something deep within you that has always known the way home, that recognizes peace not as a destination to be reached, but as the very ground of being upon which you have always stood. Dot in the flickering light of memory, ancient voices speak across the centuries, carrying wisdom like tea-warmed hands carry comfort to a weary heart. There was once a young monk named Ananda who served as the Buddha's personal attendant for over 20 years. History remembers him as one blessed with perfect memory, able to recall every teaching, every conversation, every subtle gesture of his master. Yet tonight, we remember him for something more intimate, a moment of profound human vulnerability. That occurred in the soft hours before dawn. It was during the rainy season, and the monastery had become a refuge not only for the monks, but for the steady rhythm of water on leaves, the scent of wet earth, and the particular quality of silence. That arrives when the world is washed clean. Ananda had been struggling with sleeplessness, his mind churning with questions about impermanence, about letting go, about whether he would ever truly understand the depths of the teachings he had memorized so perfectly. Picture him there, sitting cross-legged on his simple mat, watching shadows dance on the wall as lightning illuminated the courtyard outside. The Buddha found him there in the pre-dawn darkness, not sleeping, not meditating, simply sitting with his restlessness like an old friend he had learned to accept, but not yet to understand. Without words, the teacher settled beside his faithful companion, their breathing naturally synchronizing in the way that happens when 2 hearts meet in mutual recognition of what it means to be human. "Master," Ananda whispered, his voice barely audible above the gentle rain, "I have memorized every teaching about letting go, yet still I cling. I have heard you speak countless times about the peace that lies beyond attachment, yet still my mind races through the night like a wild horse. How is it that understanding and peace can seem so close, yet remain so elusive?" The Buddha's response came not immediately, but after a long, comfortable silence that seemed to contain all the wisdom of the universe. "Ananda, my dear friend," he said, his voice carrying the gentleness of wind through bamboo, "look at the rain falling outside. Does each drop struggle to let go of the cloud from which it came? Does it suffer as it releases its hold and falls toward the earth?" The young monk listened to the steady rhythm of water on stone, on leaves, on the wooden roof above their heads. "No, Master. The rain simply falls." "And yet," the Buddha continued, "is there any diminishment in this letting go? Does the drop lose anything essential when it joins the stream? when the stream joins the river, when the river joins the ocean? As if in response to his words, the rain intensified, creating a symphony of release that seemed to fill every corner of the monastery with its gentle teaching. The rain knows its nature, Ananda whispered, understanding beginning to dawn like sunrise over mountains. It doesn't resist its journey or fear its transformations. Just so, the Buddha smiled, though in the darkness, Ananda felt rather than saw this expression of infinite compassion. And you, dear friend, are like the rain. You have spent so much energy trying to understand letting go with your mind. But letting go is not an act of understanding. It is an act of trust in your own fundamental nature. The teacher reached into his simple robes and withdrew something small, holding it out toward Ananda. It was a single lotus seed, dark and hard, unremarkable to the eye, yet pregnant with infinite possibility. This seed carries within it the blueprint for extraordinary beauty, the Buddha said, placing it gently in Ananda's palm. Yet it cannot fulfill its purpose while grasping tightly to its seed nature. It must surrender to the darkness of mud, to the uncertainty of growth, to the vulnerability of opening, before it can discover what it truly is. Ananda felt the weight of the tiny seed, so small, yet somehow containing the entire teaching in its dark shell. The mantras I have taught you, the Buddha continued, are not meant to be held tightly like possessions, but to be used like this. Seed planted in the fertile darkness of uncertainty, watered with faith, allowed to transform you in ways your thinking mind cannot predict or control. As the rain continued its gentle teaching outside, Ananda felt something shift within his chest, not a dramatic breakthrough, but a subtle softening, like ice beginning to melt at the first touch of spring sunshine. The mantras he had recited so many times, Om Mani Padme Hum, Gate, Gate, Paragate, Parasamgate, Bodhisvaha, suddenly felt less like words to be understood and more like invitations to be accepted. Master, he said, his voice now carrying a different quality. I think I have been trying to use the mantras to grasp peace, rather than allowing them to help me release into the peace that is already here. The Buddha's gentle laughter mixed with the sound of rain, creating a melody that seemed to come from the heart of existence itself. Now you begin to understand, dear friend, the mantras are not tools for acquisition, but for recognition. They help us remember what we have never truly forgotten, that we are already whole, already connected to the infinite source of peace, already home in the heart of the Dharma. Years later, when Ananda had become a great teacher himself, he would often share this story with students who came to him with racing minds and restless hearts. He would speak of that rainy night, not as the moment he gained something, but as the moment he stopped trying so hard to gain anything at all. And in the sharing of this story, across centuries and continents, the gentle rain continues to fall, teaching the same lesson it taught that night in the monastery, that letting go is not a loss, but a homecoming, not an ending, but a recognition of what was never truly separate from us in the first place. In your own quiet space tonight, dear listener, feel yourself as part of this ancient lineage of seekers, connected to Ananda, to the Buddha, to countless souls who have found in the simple act of surrendering their struggles a doorway to profound peace. You are not alone in your restlessness, and you are not separate from the wisdom that has guided others home to the silence of their own true nature. Asterisk, asterisk. Now we turn inward, like a river that has found its way to the ocean, returning to the source, from which all peace flows. In the gentle darkness of your resting place, allow your awareness to settle like autumn leaves drifting down to rest upon still water. There is no need to force or control this inward turning. Simply notice how naturally your attention wants to come home to itself. Like a bird returning to its nest at twilight. With each breath, you become the stillness between thoughts. Feel how your breathing happens without your management, how your heart beats without your instruction, how life flows through you with the same effortless grace that moves the tides and turns the seasons. This is your first glimpse into the profound teaching of Anatman, the recognition that what you take to be your solid, separate self is actually more like a gentle river, constantly flowing, constantly changing, yet somehow always recognizably itself. Breathe in slowly, and as you do, imagine drawing into yourself all the peace that has ever existed, the contentment of sleeping cats, the satisfaction of trees after rain, the deep rest of mountains at midnight. This peace is not foreign to you. It is your birthright, temporarily obscured by the busyness of daily life, but never truly absent thought as you breathe out. Release everything that is not essential to this moment. Let go of the day's conversations, the tomorrow's concerns, the weight of being someone particular in a world that demands so much of your energy. In this gentle releasing, discover that you are not diminished, but expanded, not emptied, but filled with the spaciousness that is your true nature. The great Buddhist master Nagarjuna spoke of sunyata, often translated as emptiness, but more accurately understood as openness, like the sky that contains all weather without being disturbed by any of it. Tonight, as your mind settles into this natural spaciousness, you begin to taste what the masters meant when they spoke of the self not as a thing to be found, but as a process to be lived, not as a possession to be protected, but as a dance. To be danced, feel yourself floating now, drifting like a cloud that knows no boundaries between itself and the infinite blue that embraces it. In this floating, this gentle dissolution of the edges that seemed so important during the day, you encounter the profound teaching of interdependence, the recognition that you exist not as an isolated island, but as an integral part of a vast web of connection that includes the air you breathe, the earth that holds you, the sun that warmed today's sky, and the countless beings whose lives have made your life possible. With each exhale, feel yourself merging with this web of interconnection. You are the mother who carried you, the farmers who grew your food, the trees that provided the oxygen, now flowing through your bloodstream. You are the ancient stars whose deaths created the carbon in your cells, the prehistoric oceans where life first stirred, the endless succession of ancestors whose love brought you into being. This is not losing yourself, but finding your true self, vast, boundless, intimately connected to everything that exists. Now, in this space of deep recognition, let the first mantra arise naturally from the silence of your heart. Om Mani Padme. Don't speak it aloud unless you feel called to do so. Instead, let it resonate silently within you like a temple bell, struck once and allowed to ring until it dissolves into perfect silence. Om. The sound of the universe awakening to itself. The vibration that underlies all creation, the sacred yes to existence itself. Feel this syllable not as something you're saying, but as something that is being breathed through you by the very source of being. Mani, the jewel, the precious recognition of your own inherent Buddha nature, the diamond of awareness that remains, clear and unbroken regardless of what thoughts or emotions may arise and pass away like clouds across its crystal surface. Padme the lotus, blooming in perfect purity from the mud of difficult circumstances, teaching us that our deepest wisdom often emerges not despite our struggles, but because of them, transformed by compassion into offerings of beauty. Hum, the sound of integration, of wisdom and compassion united in the heart, of the individual drop recognizing its essential unity with the ocean while remaining perfectly itself. Let this sacred phrase flow through you like warm honey, settling into every cell, every breath, every heartbeat. As the mantra moves through your awareness, notice how it seems to have its own intelligence, its own rhythm, its own way of finding exactly the places in your being that most need its gentle touch. This is the mystery of sacred sound. It works not through your understanding, but through your allowing, not through your effort, but through your surrender to forces far wiser than the thinking mind. With each repetition, whether silent or whispered, Feel yourself sinking deeper into the ocean of your own true nature. The boundaries between meditator and meditation, between practitioner and practice, between seeker and sought, begin to dissolve like salt stirred into water. You are not someone doing a practice. You are the practice itself, unfolding naturally, breathing itself into existence through the willing vessel of your open heart. Om Mani Padme. Om Mani Padme Hum. Let the mantra carry you now like a gentle river carrying a leaf, requiring no effort on your part, supporting you completely as you drift deeper into the territory of dreams, deeper into the realm where wisdom speaks without words and peace touches you with invisible hands that have been waiting your whole life to welcome you home. In this space of profound letting go, you discover what the Buddhist masters have always known, that the self you thought you were seeking was never lost, that the peace you imagined was somewhere else has always been here, that the enlightenment you believed was so far away is as close as your next breath, your next heartbeat, your next moment of simple, ordinary, miraculous presence. Asterisk, asterisk, in the soft spaces between what we think we know, ancient secrets wait like shy deer at the edge of a moonlit clearing, ready to approach only those who sit very still and ask for nothing. There is a story seldom told in the traditional texts of a moment that occurred during the Buddha's silent years, those 7 weeks he spent beneath the Bodhi tree after his great awakening, before he spoke his first teaching. The historical accounts speak of his struggle with whether to teach at all, wondering if others could understand what he had discovered. But there was something else that happened during those quiet weeks, something the scholars rarely mention, but the mystics have whispered about for centuries. Picture the scene. Dawn breaking over the ancient tree, its heart-shaped leaves catching. The first light like green prayers. The Buddha sat in perfect stillness, his breathing so gentle it barely disturbed the morning air. Around him, the world continued its ancient rhythms, birds greeting the sun, insects humming their tiny prayers, dewdrops releasing their hold on grass blades and returning to the earth. Yet something extraordinary was occurring in the invisible realm of consciousness. As he sat there, fully awake yet completely at rest, the newly enlightened one began to hear something that had always been present, but never before perceived with such clarity. It was not a sound in the ordinary sense, but rather the underlying vibration from which all sounds emerge and to which they all return. The ancient texts call it the anahat nava, the music of existence itself. This is the hidden truth that lives at the heart of all mantras. They are not human inventions, but discoveries of sounds that were always there, waiting to be recognized. Om Mani Padme Hum was not created by the Buddha or by any human teacher. It was heard, the way one might suddenly notice the sound of one's own heartbeat in a moment of perfect quiet. Each syllable corresponded to something fundamental in the architecture of consciousness, something that had been vibrating since the first moment. Awareness looked upon itself and smiled. But here's the gentle surprise that even many Buddhist practitioners don't know. The mantra works backward through time. When you chant or silently repeat these sacred syllables, you're not just reciting an ancient formula, you're participating in the very discovery that occurred beneath the Bodhi tree. You're joining your voice to that primordial recognition, adding your own note to the infinite symphony that began when consciousness first awakened to its own nature. There is another secret, tender as a mother's lullaby. The great Tibetan master Milarepa, who lived in caves high in the Himalayas and achieved enlightenment through the practice of sacred songs, discovered something remarkable about the relationship between mantras and dreams. He found that if one falls asleep while silently repeating a mantra, the sacred syllables continue to vibrate in the dream state, creating what he called luminous sleep, a condition where the boundary between waking and dreaming dissolves into a third state of consciousness that is both rest and awakening. In this luminous sleep, Milarepa reported, The meanings of the mantras reveal themselves not through intellectual understanding, but through direct experience. Om becomes the felt sense of infinite space. Mani transforms into the actual experience of one's own precious Buddha nature. Padme blossoms as the visceral knowing of how beauty emerges from difficulty. Hum reverberates as the lived truth of unity, underlying all apparent separation. And here, dear listener, is perhaps the most surprising secret of all. The mantras don't require perfect pronunciation, deep understanding, or even faith. They work through what the tradition calls adhisthana grace, or blessing power that operates beyond the realm of personal effort. There are documented cases of people who learned mantras incorrectly, who mispronounced the Sanskrit, who had no idea what the words meant, yet still experienced profound transformation. One such story comes from a simple cowherd in ancient India, who overheard monks chanting Om Mani Padme Hum, but misheard it as Om Mani Padme Hum. For 40 years, he repeated this incorrect version while tending his cattle, using it as a way to stay present with his work. When Buddhist scholars discovered his mistake and corrected him, the man was devastated, thinking he had wasted decades of practice. But that night, as he lay in his simple hut, something extraordinary occurred. The correct mantra felt hollow in his mouth, like trying to sing someone else's song. In desperation, he returned to his incorrect version, and immediately the familiar peace flooded back through him. At that moment, he understood what the masters meant when they taught that the power of the mantra lies not in its form, but in the sincerity of the heart that offers it. The next morning, the monks found him sitting in meditation, his face radiant, with a joy they had rarely seen. Around him, the very air seemed to shimmer with blessing. His cattle gathered nearby, as if drawn by some invisible force, lying down in perfect contentment. Even the birds seemed to sing more sweetly in his presence. This is the hidden truth that all the masters knew but rarely spoke directly. The mantras are alive. They have their own intelligence, their own compassion, their own way of adapting to exactly what each practitioner needs. Like water taking the shape of whatever container holds it, the sacred syllables mold themselves to the unique contours of each heart, working their transformation in ways that are always perfectly suited to the individual's capacity and circumstances. Tonight, as you rest in the growing quiet of your sanctuary, know that the mantra you carry with you into sleep will continue its work in ways your conscious mind cannot imagine or control. It will weave itself through your dreams, your deep sleep, your periods of waking in the dark hours before dawn. It will speak to parts of you that rarely get to hear the voice of wisdom, offering healing to places you didn't even know were wounded. The ancient secrets are not hidden because they are forbidden, but because they can only be discovered through the intimate experience of practice itself. Om Mani Padme Hum is not just a mantra, but a key that unlocks the door between the ordinary and the sacred, between the restless mind and the peaceful heart, between the dreamer and the dreamed. Tonight, you don't need to understand these mysteries. You need only to rest in them, allowing their hidden truths to reveal themselves in their own time, in their own gentle, surprising ways. As the mantra continues to echo in the silence of your being, feel yourself cradled by forces far more ancient and compassionate than you ever imagined, carried toward rest by the same invisible current that guides rivers to the sea and stars. Through their infinite dance, like ripples spreading across a moonlit pond, we begin to explore the deepest mysteries of the human heart, where suffering and peace dance together in an eternal embrace. In the growing stillness of your sanctuary, allow your awareness to settle like snow falling on a quiet mountain lake. Tonight, we venture into one of Buddhism's most profound recognitions, that suffering and peace are not opposites warring for control of our experience, but rather two faces of the same truth, like darkness and light defining each other across the arc of each passing day. Consider, if you will, the nature of a wave upon the ocean. Each wave appears to rise from nothing, gathering force and form as it moves toward shore, existing for its brief moment of cresting beauty before dissolving back into the vast waters from which it came. While it exists, the wave might imagine itself separate from the ocean, might fear its inevitable dissolution, might suffer in its desperate attempt to maintain its temporary form. Yet from the ocean's perspective, nothing is ever lost. The wave is never truly separate from its source, and its dissolution is not death, but homecoming water returning to water, form relaxing back into the formless vastness that is its true nature. This is the first gentle insight that transforms our relationship with suffering, your pain, your worry, your restless mind racing through scenarios of past and future. These are like waves arising from the ocean of consciousness itself. They feel so solid, so permanent, so definitively yours when you're caught within their grip. Yet they are actually temporary formations in the vast space of awareness, destined to arise, peak, and dissolve back into the peace that is your fundamental nature. But here lies a deeper mystery, tender as candlelight flickering in a monastery at midnight. The suffering is not a mistake. It is not evidence that something has gone wrong with your spiritual journey, or that you have failed to understand the teachings properly. Rather, it is an integral part of the awakening process itself, the wave's necessary journey toward recognizing its essential unity with the ocean dot in Tibetan Buddhism. There is a beautiful concept called Bardo, the intermediate state, the space between one thing and another. Most people think of Bardo only in relation to death and rebirth, but the masters teach that we are constantly moving through Bardos, the space between sleeping and waking, between one thought and the next, between suffering and relief. Tonight, as you rest in the quietude of approaching sleep, you are in the Bardo between day consciousness and the deeper wisdom of dreams dot in this liminal space. Feel how your usual sense of being someone particular begins to soften like ice melting in spring sunshine. The worries that felt so urgent just hours ago now seem distant as mountain peaks viewed from a valley floor. The problems that demanded your attention with such insistence now appear more like clouds, passing across an endless sky temporary, changing, not requiring your intervention to be exactly what they are. This softening is not indifference. It is the beginning of true compassion. When you stop resisting your experience, when you allow your pain to be pain without adding the extra layer of suffering that comes from fighting it, something extraordinary happens. The very energy you are using to push away your difficulty becomes available for a deeper kind of healing, not the healing that changes your circumstances, but the healing that changes your relationship to whatever circumstances arise. Each inhalation, draw in not just air, but all the compassion that has ever been offered to suffering beings throughout history. Feel yourself receiving the tenderness of mothers, comforting crying children, of friends sitting quietly with friends in grief, of teachers holding space for students, struggling to understand dot with each exhalation. Release not just carbon dioxide, but all the resistance you've been carrying to the natural ebb and flow of life. Let go of the exhausting effort to make things other than they are, to solve problems that may not need solving, to fix parts of yourself that may not be broken dot in this gentle rhythm of receiving and releasing. Discover the secret that the mystics have always known. Peace is not the opposite of suffering. It is the spacious awareness within which both suffering and joy can arise without disturbing your essential nature. Like the sky that remains unchanged, whether it holds storm clouds or sunshine, your true self remains vast and untroubled, regardless of what weather patterns may be moving through your emotional landscape. The mantra rises now from this recognition, soft as a mother's lullaby. Om Mani Padme, Hum Dot Om, the sound of space itself, vast enough to hold all your pain without being diminished, expansive enough to embrace all your joy without being overwhelmed. Mani, the jewel of recognition that Your suffering is not a flaw in your character, but a doorway to deeper compassion, both for yourself and for all beings who share this tender, temporary human experience. Pad me the lotus of understanding that blooms most beautifully in the muddy waters of difficulty, teaching you that your challenges are not obstacles to awakening, but the very ground in which wisdom grows. Hum the integration of this truth into every cell of your being, a deep yes to all of life. The recognition that even your resistance to suffering is held in the infinite compassion of your true nature. As the sacred syllables flow through you like honey through warm tea, feel yourself dissolving into the recognition that has always been available. You are not someone who sometimes experiences peace. You are peace itself, temporarily wearing the costume of a particular person, playing the role of someone seeking what they already are. Your suffering is not separate from this peace. It is peace temporarily forgetting its own nature, like an actor so absorbed in their role that they forget they are playing. Tonight, as you drift toward the borderland of dreams, carry with you this gentle truth. Every moment of difficulty you have ever experienced has been the ocean playing at being a wave, consciousness exploring what it feels like to imagine itself separate, love temporarily pretending not to recognize itself in the mirror of experience. Nothing has ever been truly wrong. Everything has always been an expression of the one truth investigating itself through the beautiful, temporary illusion of multiplicity. Rest now in this recognition, floating on the infinite ocean of being held by the same love that moves the stars and breathes through the flowers. Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum. In the soft territory of twilight consciousness, we approach the mystery that has puzzled seekers for millennia, the art of letting go that is no art at all, the practice of non-practice, the doing that is actually an undoing. Imagine, if you will, walking through a garden at dusk, where every flower holds a different understanding of what it means to release. The roses drop their petals with such grace that each falling seems like a gift to the earth below. The dandelions surrender their seeds to the evening breeze with a trust so complete it appears as joy. Even the mighty oak lets go of its leaves. When autumn arrives, not in defeat, but in recognition of the deeper rhythm that connects all seasons. Yet what is this letting go that the Buddhist masters speak of with such reverence? It is not, as many imagine, a forceful casting away of things we no longer want. It is not the clenched-jaw determination to stop caring, stop feeling, stop being affected by the tender vulnerabilities of being human. Such efforts create more tension, not less, like trying to relax by commanding your muscles to stop being tight, or attempting to fall asleep by demanding that sleep arrive immediately. True letting go is more like learning to dance with gravity rather than fighting it. Watch how a child releases a balloon into the sky. There is no struggle, no violence in the gesture. The small fingers simply open, and what was held becomes free. The balloon doesn't fly away from the child. It flies toward its own nature, toward the vast openness that was always calling it home. In that moment of release, the child experiences not loss, but a kind of vicarious freedom, as if part of them too has been liberated into the endless blue. This is the secret that takes lifetimes to understand, and yet can be glimpsed in a single breath. What we're letting go of is not the people we love, not the dreams that matter to us, not the life we've worked so hard to build. What we're releasing is the exhausting effort to control how these beloved things unfold, the desperate grip that tries to freeze the flowing river of existence into manageable, permanent forms. In the gentle darkness of your resting place, feel the weight of all you've been trying to hold together through sheer force of will, the relationships you've been trying to perfect through constant vigilance. The future you've been attempting to secure through endless planning, the image of yourself you've been maintaining through careful management of how others perceive you, the spiritual progress you've been measuring against imaginary standards of enlightenment. Now, like that child with the balloon, simply open your hands, not abandoning what matters to you, but releasing your grip on how things must unfold. Not stopping caring, but caring with open palms rather than clenched fists. Not becoming indifferent, but discovering the profound relief that comes when love no longer feels like a job you might fail at. This is where the ancient practice of Tonglen offers its radical gift. In traditional Tonglen meditation, practitioners breathe in suffering and breathe out relief. But tonight, in the spirit of gentle letting go, we can practice a softer version. Breathing in whatever you've been holding too tightly, and breathing out the willingness to trust the process of life itself. Breathe in your worry about tomorrow. Breathe out trust in your ability to meet whatever comes. Breathe in your regret about yesterday. Breathe out forgiveness for the perfectly imperfect human you have always been. Breathe in your frustration with how slowly you seem to be learning life's lessons. Breathe out appreciation for the unique timing of your own unfolding. With each breath, feel the difference between abandoning and releasing, between giving up and giving over. When you abandon something, you turn away from it with resentment or defeat. When you release something, you honor it fully before allowing it to follow its own path. When you give up, you collapse in exhaustion. When you give over, you surrender to a wisdom larger than your personal will, trusting that there are currents in existence that know how to carry what you cannot. The Buddha, sitting beneath the Bodhi tree, did not let go of his concern for the suffering of beings. He let go of his attachment to being the one who had to solve it through his own efforts. In that surrender, infinite compassion could flow through him without being filtered through the narrow channel of personal agenda. He became transparent to the Dharma, like a clear window pane that allows light to pass through without obstruction. This is the invitation that echoes through every mantra, every teaching, every moment of practice. Om Mani Padme Hum is not just a phrase to repeat, but a doorway into this transparency. Each syllable invites a different aspect of letting go. Om releasing the illusion that you are separate from the vast intelligence that orchestrates galaxies and grows flowers with equal perfection. Mani releasing the belief that your worth depends on achieving some future state of spiritual attainment. Padme releasing the resistance to finding beauty and meaning in the muddy, imperfect circumstances of your actual life. Hum releasing the effort to understand, letting go with your mind, and allowing it to happen through the deeper wisdom of your heart. As these sacred sounds flow through the growing quiet of your being, notice how letting go is not something you do, but something you allow. Like relaxing into warm bathwater, like allowing sleep to take you when you've been lying awake too long, like permitting tears to flow when grief has been building behind your eyes for days. The practice is not in the forcing, but in the allowing. Not in the doing, but in the stopping of the doing that was never necessary in the first place. Tonight, as consciousness begins its gentle descent toward dreams, feel yourself held by the same force that allows leaves to fall, tides to turn, seasons to change without anxiety or resistance. You are not falling apart, you are falling together, like puzzle pieces settling into their perfect configuration. You are not losing yourself, you are finding the self that was always there beneath, the layers of effortful becoming. You are not failing at life, you are succeeding at being human, which has always included the beautiful, necessary art of letting go. Rest now in this understanding, releasing into the infinite tenderness that has always been your true home. Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum. In the hushed cathedral of approaching sleep, we contemplate the most mysterious of all questions, not how to awaken, but what awakening truly is, like trying to describe the taste of water to someone who has never been thirsty. There is a Zen saying that enlightenment is an accident, but practice makes us accident-prone. Tonight, As your consciousness drifts between the shores of waking and sleeping, feel yourself becoming deliciously accident-prone, open to the gentle collision with truth that has been waiting patiently for your arrival your entire life. Picture, if you will, a person who has been searching for their eyeglasses while wearing them. They look everywhere under cushions, on tables, in drawers, growing increasingly frustrated with each passing moment. Friends try to help, offering suggestions about where the glasses might be hiding. Books are written about the best techniques for finding lost eyeglasses. Support groups form for people struggling with missing spectacles. Yet all the while, clear vision has been available with the simple recognition that what they seek is already present, has never been absent, could not be lost because it was never separate from them. This is the gentle absurdity that the masters smile about when they speak of awakening God. We spend lifetimes seeking what we already are, traveling vast distances to find what never left home, studying complex philosophies to understand what a child knows naturally, that love is real, that peace is possible, that the fundamental nature of existence is benevolent beyond our wildest imaginings. Asterisk. But here lies the beautiful paradox that has confused seekers throughout history. If we are already awake, why don't we feel awake? If we are already enlightened, why does suffering continue? If we are already home, why does life often feel like wandering in the wilderness? The answer comes not through more thinking, but through the kind of recognition that happens when you're looking at one of those optical illusions. It suddenly shifts perspective. One moment you see a vase, the next moment you see two faces in profile. Nothing has changed in the image itself, only your way of seeing has shifted. Yet that shift changes everything. Awakening is like this, not a new experience, but a new way of experiencing in the soft twilight of your sanctuary. Feel how even now, awareness is aware of itself. Notice how effortlessly you know that you know. This knowing of knowing, this consciousness that is conscious of its own consciousness, is not something you achieve through years of meditation. It is the most intimate fact of your existence, present in every moment, as obvious as the taste of your own tongue. Yet somehow, we learn to overlook this miracle. We become so fascinated by the contents of awareness thoughts, emotions, sensations, perceptions that we forget the aware space in which they all appear and disappear like actors crossing a vast, empty stage, the Buddha's great discovery beneath. The Bodhi tree was not that he became something new, but that he stopped ignoring what had always been true. Like a fish suddenly recognizing water, like a bird becoming aware of air, he saw that what he had been seeking through years of ascetic practice was the very awareness that had been seeking all along. The seeker and the sought were revealed to be one not philosophically, but as immediate, undeniable experience. This is why the masters often seem to speak in riddles. Who is it that wants to be enlightened? They ask, show me the one who is. Suffering, they challenge, not to be cryptic or evasive, but to point directly at the recognition that the one who seeks awakening is already the awakened one, temporarily lost in the dream of being a separate person on a spiritual journey. Om Mani Padme Hum carries this recognition in its very syllables, each sound pointing to a different aspect of what you already are. Om, the infinite awareness that is your true nature, vast as space, present in every experience, yet never limited by any experience. Mani, the precious recognition of your own Buddha nature, perfect and complete, needing nothing added, requiring no improvement. Whole exactly as you are. Padme, dash the lotus of understanding that you're human. Imperfections are not obstacles to awakening, but the very mud in which the flower of realization blooms. Hum, the sound of coming home to yourself. The deep exhale of Vai, recognizing that the journey has always been from yourself to yourself, by way of yourself. As these sacred syllables echo through the growing quiet of your being. Feel how awakening is not a distant goal, but a present reality, temporarily obscured by the habit of looking elsewhere. It's like being in a room with the lights, dimmed so low you can barely see, and gradually realizing that you've been holding the light switch all along. The illumination doesn't come from somewhere else. It reveals what was always here, waiting for your simple willingness to see. But awakening is not just a personal recognition. It's the universe becoming conscious of itself through your particular nervous system. Right now, through your eyes that are reading or listening to these words, existence is looking at itself with wonder. Through your breath that rises and falls without your conscious control, life is breathing itself into awareness. Through your heart that beats in rhythm with some cosmic drum, love is loving itself through the temporary mask of your individual personality. This is why the enlightened ones speak of awakening not as achievement, but as relaxation. Not the tension of reaching for something beyond yourself, but the relief of releasing the effort to be other than what you already are. Not the exhaustion of self-improvement, but the ease of self-acceptance. Not the strain of becoming, but the simplicity of being. In the gentle borderland between waking and sleeping, taste this simplicity. ***. Feel how you exist without trying to exist, how you are aware without effort, how love flows through you without your management or permission. This effortless being is not preparation for awakening, it is awakening itself, as natural as breathing, as ordinary as the space between your thoughts. Tonight, as consciousness prepares for its nightly dissolution into dreams, recognize that even sleep is a form of awakening. In sleep, the person you think you are during the day temporarily dissolves, yet awareness continues. Dreams arise and fade like clouds across an endless sky. Deep sleep provides the refreshment that no amount of thinking could provide. Something in you knows exactly how to orchestrate this mighty transition from conscious thought to healing. Rest. That something is the awakened one, the Buddha nature, the Christ consciousness, the infinite self that has never been asleep, never been confused, never been in need of saving. It has been patiently waiting behind all your seeking, supporting all your efforts, blessing all your struggles, knowing with absolute certainty that you would eventually tire of looking everywhere else and turn your attention to the one place you never thought to look here. Now, in the simple, immediate, undeniable fact of your own aware presence. Rest now in this recognition, awakening as you fall asleep, sleeping as you awaken, held by the consciousness that is your deepest identity. Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum. Freedom drifts through our contemplation like incense smoke on a windless evening, impossible to grasp yet unmistakably present, touching everything while belonging to nothing. In the deepening quiet of your sanctuary, let your awareness settle into the mystery that has captivated sages and mystics across all traditions. The question of what it truly means to be free. Not free from responsibility or relationship, not free from the tender vulnerabilities of having a human heart, but free in the deepest sense that the Buddhist masters discovered in their meditation. Caves and forest hermitages. Consider the image of a bird in flight across an open sky. What makes the bird free? It is not the absence of gravity. Gravity is still there, still pulling. It is not the absence of air resistance. The bird works with these forces, not against them. The bird's freedom lies in its complete harmony with the conditions of its existence, using the very forces that could limit it as the means of its liberation. This is the first glimpse into what the Buddha meant by moksha, ultimate freedom. It is not escape from the conditions of existence, but such complete acceptance of them that they become doorways rather than barriers, allies rather than enemies, dance partners rather than opponents in some cosmic struggle. But what are these conditions from which we imagine we need to be free? In your own quiet reflection, notice the subtle prison that thought constructs around your experience. I should be different than I am. Life should be easier than it is. Other people should understand me better. My past should have unfolded differently. My future should be more secure. Each of these thoughts, however reasonable it might seem, is like a bar in an invisible cage built from resistance to what is. Not resistance to injustice that calls for action, but resistance to the fundamental texture of reality itself, its impermanence, its unpredictability, its refusal to conform to our personal preferences about how existence should operate. True freedom begins with the radical recognition that this resistance is optional. In the soft twilight of approaching sleep, experiment with this recognition. Notice a thought that carries tension, perhaps a worry about tomorrow, a regret about yesterday, a judgment about some aspect of your current experience. Now, instead of trying to change the thought or push it away, simply notice the space in which it appears. This space, vast, unchanging, intimately present, is your first taste of ultimate freedom. Thoughts come and go like weather patterns across the sky of awareness, but the sky itself remains untroubled. Emotions rise and fall like waves on the ocean of being, but the ocean's essential nature is undisturbed. Even the most painful experiences are held within a context of spacious presence that is never damaged by what it contains. The ancient Tibetan Master Lone Genpa called this Rigpa the natural state of primordial awareness that is always already free. Free, not because it has escaped from anything, but because it was never trapped in the first place. Like space itself, which contains all objects without being limited by any object, this awareness contains all experiences without being defined by any experience. But here we encounter the beautiful paradox that has puzzled philosophers for millennia. How can we be free if our actions are conditioned by our past, our thoughts shaped by our culture, our emotional responses determined by our psychology? How can we speak of ultimate freedom while living in bodies that age, hearts that break, minds that sometimes spiral into anxiety or depression? The answer comes not through philosophical analysis, but through direct recognition. You are not your conditioning. You are the aware space in which conditioning appears. You are not your thoughts. You are the knowing presence that witnesses thinking. You are not your emotions. You are the vast heart that feels all feelings without being overwhelmed by any feeling. This is why the great mantra, Gate, Gate, Paragate, Parasamgate Bodhisvaha, has been chanted by millions of practitioners as a celebration of freedom. Gone beyond the illusion that you are limited to your personal history. Paragate, gone beyond even the idea that there is somewhere to go or someone to become. Parasamgate, gone beyond the beyond, where even the concept of liberation dissolves into the simple recognition of what you have always been. Bodhisvaha awakening, so be it, the joyful acceptance of freedom as your natural state. As these ancient syllables flow through your consciousness, like a gentle river. Feel how freedom is not something you achieve, but something you are. Not free in the future when you've solved all your problems, overcome all your limitations, perfected all your imperfections. Free now, in this very moment, as the awareness that is reading these words, breathing this breath, resting in this quiet sanctuary of approaching sleep. The masters speak of three kinds of freedom, each deeper than the last. First, there is freedom from liberation from obvious sources of suffering, like addiction, toxic relationships, oppressive circumstances. This is important work, often requiring great courage and practical wisdom. Second, there is freedom to the positive liberty to express your authentic nature, to follow your deepest calling, to love without reservation. This too is precious, a flowering of the human spirit that enriches both individual life and the wider world. But deepest of all is freedom, as the recognition that you are freedom itself, that awareness is inherently unbound, that your essential nature cannot be imprisoned by any experience. No matter how challenging. This is the freedom that remains available even in the most difficult circumstances. Viktor Frankl, surviving the Nazi concentration camps, discovered this truth in the darkest possible conditions. "Everything can be taken from a man but one thing," he wrote, "the last of human freedoms to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances." But the Buddhist understanding goes even deeper than choosing your attitude. It recognizes that beneath all attitudes, beyond all choices, there is the unchanging witness of experience itself, and this witness has never been touched by suffering, never been diminished by pain, never been limited by the temporary stories that play out in the theater of personal existence. Om Mani Padme Hum points to this ultimate freedom in each of its sacred syllables. Om, the boundless space of awareness that cannot be caged. Mani, the precious recognition of your inherent liberation. Padme, the lotus of freedom, blooming in the muddy waters of ordinary life. The integration of this recognition into every aspect of your being. Tonight, as the gentle tide of sleep begins to carry you toward dreams, rest in this deepest freedom. Free, not because you have escaped from your humanity, but because you have discovered the infinite heart of your humanity. Free not because you have transcended your circumstances, but because you have found the untouchable essence that exists within every circumstance. Free not because you have solved the mystery of existence, but because you have learned to dance with mystery itself. This freedom is your birthright, dear friend, closer than your breath, more intimate than your heartbeat, more certain than the love that brought you into being. It cannot be earned through spiritual achievement or lost through human failure. It is the very ground of your existence, the deepest truth of who you are, the peace that surpasses understanding and rests at the heart of every moment. Sleep now as one who is free. Dream as one who is liberated. Rest as one who has never been in bondage, except in the beautiful temporary illusion that makes awakening possible. Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum. In the cathedral silence of the approaching night, we encounter the mystery that lives at the heart of all existence stillness, not as the absence of movement, but as the unchanging presence that makes all movement possible. Imagine, if you will, sitting beside a mountain lake at dawn, its surface so perfectly still that it becomes a mirror reflecting the awakening sky. Now watch as a single stone is dropped into this pristine surface. Ripples spread outward in ever-widening circles, disturbing the reflection, creating patterns of light and shadow that dance across the water's face. Yet beneath these ripples, something remains unchanged. The lake itself vast, deep, fundamentally undisturbed by the temporary patterns playing across its surface. The ripples are real, the movement is genuine, yet they exist within and depend upon a stillness that is never actually broken, only temporarily obscured. This is the first recognition that transforms our understanding of stillness. It is not the opposite of movement, but the very ground in which movement occurs. In your own quiet sanctuary tonight, notice how your thoughts arise and fade like those ripples on the lake's surface. Each thought seems so important, so demanding of attention, yet it appears within a context of aware stillness that remains untroubled by even the most turbulent mental weather. The ancient masters discovered this truth in their deep meditations, sitting so quietly that eventually the difference between inner and outer, between meditator and meditation, dissolved into a recognition that changed everything. They found that beneath all the activity of the mind, beneath all the emotions of the heart, beneath all the sensations of the body, there exists a stillness so profound it cannot be disturbed, so present it requires no maintenance, so natural it continues even when we're not paying attention to it. But this is not the stillness of death or emptiness. It is the stillness that is pregnant with infinite possibility. Consider how all music emerges from silence and returns to silence. The silence doesn't compete with the music, or oppose it rather. It provides the spacious context that allows each note to be heard clearly. each melody to unfold perfectly. Without silence, there could be no music, only noise. Without stillness, there could be no movement, only chaos. This is why the Buddha spoke of nirvana, not as a place to go, but as the recognition of what has always been here. The word itself means extinguishing or blowing out, not the extinguishing of life, but the gentle blowing out of the restless flame of seeking that obscures our recognition of the peace that is always already present. Like blowing out a candle to see the stars that were there all along, hidden by the very light we thought we needed. In the growing quiet of your evening sanctuary, taste this stillness for yourself, not by trying to stop your thoughts. That would be like trying to flatten the ripples on the lake by pressing down on them. Instead, simply rest your attention in the awareness that is already aware of the thoughts, the space in which they arise and dissolve like clouds in an empty sky. Feel how this awareness requires no effort to maintain itself. You don't have to work to be conscious. Consciousness is your most natural state. You don't have to practice being aware. Awareness is what you are, not what you do. You don't have to achieve stillness. You are the stillness in which all experience occurs. The great Zen master Huang Po taught, your everyday mind, that is the way. Not your mind when it's perfectly calm, not your consciousness when it's finally enlightened, but your ordinary awareness right now, reading these words, following these thoughts, breathing these breaths. This everyday awareness is already the still point around which all existence revolves. Om Mani Padme Hum emerges from this stillness and dissolves back into it, each repetition like a wave returning to the ocean. Om, the primordial stillness, from which all sounds arise, the pregnant silence that gives birth to every word, every song, every expression of the divine. Mani, the jewel-like recognition that this stillness is not empty, but infinitely full, not vacant, but vibrantly alive with potential. Padme, the lotus of understanding that blooms in the muddy waters of daily life, teaching us that ordinary moments are gateways to extraordinary peace. Hum, the sound of coming home to the stillness that we never truly left. The recognition that seeking and finding are one movement in the eternal dance of consciousness knowing itself. As these sacred syllables flow through your being like gentle rain. Notice how even the mantra itself points beyond itself to the silence from which it comes and to which it returns. This is the deepest teaching of all meditation, all prayer, all spiritual practice, not to achieve some special state, but to recognize the extraordinary nature of this ordinary moment, the sacred quality of simple being, the divine presence that infuses every breath, every heartbeat, every peaceful settling into rest. The mystics of all traditions have discovered this same truth, expressed in their own cultural language. The Christian contemplatives speak of the peace that passeth understanding. The Sufi poets write of fana, the dissolution of personal will into divine stillness. The Hindu sages teach about Satchit Ananda existence, consciousness, bliss as the unchanging ground of all changing experience. Yet this stillness is not philosophical concept, but lived reality, available in every moment. Right now, as these words flow through your awareness, something in you receives them without effort. This receiving presence doesn't struggle to understand, doesn't work to remember, doesn't try to become enlightened through accumulating spiritual knowledge. It simply is vast, open, naturally peaceful, inherently wise. This is why stillness is called the deepest truth, not because it is hidden or esoteric, but because it is so intimate, so immediately present that we overlook it in our search for something more dramatic. Like the person who spends years traveling the world in search of home, only to discover that home was never anywhere else but where they always were. Like the student who studies countless books about water while dying of thirst, not realizing that what they seek is readily available in the next room. Tonight, as consciousness prepares for its nightly journey into dreams, rest in this recognition. You are not someone who sometimes experiences stillness. You are stillness itself, temporarily wearing the costume of a particular person, playing the beautiful role of someone seeking what they already are. Your restless mind is not disturbing the stillness. It is stillness in motion, like waves, dancing on the eternal ocean of being. The deepest truth is not something to be attained, but something to be relaxed into. More intimate than intimacy, more present than presence, more still than stillness itself. It is the unchanging witness of all change, the unmoved mover of all movement, the silent source from which all sound emerges and to which all sound returns. Sleep now as this stillness. Dream as this peace. Rest as the eternal awareness that is your deepest identity. Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum. In the velvet darkness of deepening night, three streams of divine quality flow together, like confluent rivers meeting in the vast ocean of your being. Compassion flowing like water toward all that suffers, wisdom shining like stars through the darkness of confusion, and grace descending like moonlight, blessing everything it touches with silver light. Let us follow first the river of compassion as it winds through the landscape of the heart. Picture, if you will, a mother deer in a forest clearing, standing protective watch over her sleeping fawn. Every sound, every movement, every shift in the wind brings her alert attention, not from fear, but from a love so pure it naturally extends itself as vigilant care. This is the quality the Buddhists call karuna, compassion, that arises not from sentiment or emotion, but from the deep recognition that all beings share the same fundamental desire to be happy and free from suffering. But true compassion begins with the most difficult person to love. Yourself. In the gentle quiet of your sanctuary tonight, notice how readily you extend kindness to a dear friend in pain, yet how harshly you speak to yourself when you make mistakes, fall short of your expectations, or struggle with very human difficulties. The river of compassion must first learn to flow toward the one who needs it most, the tender, imperfect, beautifully human being you see in the mirror each morning. This is not self-indulgence or spiritual selfishness, but practical wisdom. Just as you cannot pour water from an empty pitcher, you cannot offer genuine compassion to others from a heart that has not learned to be kind to itself. The Buddha himself taught that we can search throughout the entire universe and never find anyone more deserving of love than ourselves. Feel how compassion naturally wants to flow, like water finding its way downhill. It asks nothing of you except your willingness to stop damming it up with judgments, comparisons, and the exhausting project of trying to be perfect. When you release these artificial barriers, compassion reveals itself as your most natural response to the tender vulnerability of being alive. Om Mani Padme Hum itself is often called the mantra of compassion, each syllable opening another channel for love to flow. Om-compassion for the universal struggle of all beings, caught in the illusion of separation. Mani-compassion for your own precious Buddha nature, perfect even in its apparent imperfection. Padme-compassion for the difficult circumstances that become the very mud in which wisdom grows. Hum compassion, integrated into every aspect of being, flowing naturally as breath, as effortless as gravity. Now let your awareness drift upward, like a gentle soul rising toward the starlit sky, where wisdom sparkles in the infinite darkness. Prajna, transcendent wisdom, is not the accumulation of information or the mastery of spiritual concepts. It is more like learning to see by starlight, navigating by a kind of inner knowing that doesn't depend on the bright sunshine of intellectual certainty. Consider how indigenous peoples navigated vast oceans using only the stars, the flight patterns of birds, the subtle changes in wind and wave. They developed an intuitive relationship with the natural world that allowed them to find their way across seemingly featureless expanses of water. This is the quality of wisdom the Buddhist path cultivates, not book learning, but a kind of intimate knowing that emerges from deep listening to the patterns and rhythms of existence itself. In your own life, you have experienced this wisdom many times without recognizing it. The moment you suddenly understood something about a relationship that couldn't be explained through analysis. The time you knew without knowing how you knew that a particular choice was right for you. Those instances when words arose from your mouth that seemed to come from a source deeper than your personal knowledge. This is prajna in action wisdom. That flows from the source of being itself, requiring no credentials, no authorization, no stamp of approval from external authorities. It is the wisdom that knows how to heal without studying medicine, how to console without training in psychology, how to love without lessons in relationship skills. It emerges naturally when the busyness of the thinking mind settles into the spacious clarity of open awareness. As you rest in the growing quiet of approaching sleep, feel this wisdom beginning to sparkle in the darkness of not knowing. Each star in the night sky of consciousness is a moment of recognition, a glimpse of understanding that doesn't come through effort, but through the relaxation that allows your natural intelligence to shine forth unobstructed. Finally, feel the descent of grace, not earning, not achieving, not deserving, but receiving. Grace in the Buddhist tradition is called adishena, the blessing power that operates beyond the realm of personal effort or merit. Like moonlight that shines equally on saint and sinner, on the wise and the confused, on the prepared and the unprepared, grace descends according to laws more mysterious than justice, more generous than fairness. You have been touched by grace more often than you realize. Every time you've been forgiven when you didn't deserve it. Every moment when peace has descended for no apparent reason. Every occasion when love has surprised you with its sudden, unexpected presence. These are not accidents, but glimpses of the fundamental benevolence that underlies existence itself. Grace is why mantras work even when we don't understand them. Why meditation transforms us, even when we feel like we're doing it wrong. Why love heals us, even when we believe we're unworthy of healing. It operates through what the Christian mystics called unmerited favor, and what the Buddhists recognize as the infinite compassion of the Dharma itself, the natural tendency of the universe toward awakening, toward healing, toward the restoration of wholeness. Tonight, as these three rivers meet in the ocean of your being, feel yourself held by forces far more loving than anything your personal history might suggest you deserve. Compassion flowing through your heart like warm honey, wisdom twinkling in your awareness like stars reflected in still water. Grace descending through your consciousness like moonlight, blessing everything it touches. Om Mani Padme Hum carries all three qualities in its ancient syllables, each repetition, opening you more fully to the love, wisdom, and blessing that constitute your deepest nature. You are not someone who sometimes experiences these divine qualities. You are the very space in which they dance together in eternal celebration. Rest now in this triple blessing, held by compassion, illuminated by wisdom, baptized by grace, floating on the confluence of these sacred rivers as they carry you toward the ocean of dreams. Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, asterisk. As our gentle journey through the sacred landscape of Buddhist wisdom draws to its close, we find ourselves here in this tender moment between waking and sleeping, between seeking and finding, between the story of separation and the wordless recognition of our eternal unity. Like pilgrims who have walked together along an ancient path, we pause now at the edge of dreams, hearts full of the treasures we have gathered, not new possessions to carry, but remembrances of what we never truly lost, recognitions of what was always already here. Tonight, we have touched the timeless teachings that have comforted countless souls across the centuries. We have felt how suffering and peace dance together in the vast ballroom of consciousness. We have tasted the liberation that comes not from escaping our humanity, but from embracing it so completely that we discover the divine essence hidden within every ordinary moment. The mantras we have shared: Om Mani Padme Hum, Gate Gate Paragate Parasamgate Bodhi Svaha. These are not merely words, but living streams of blessing that will continue to flow through your being long after these spoken words have faded into silence. They carry within their ancient syllables the accumulated prayers of millions of practitioners, the concentrated essence of compassion refined through countless repetitions by hearts seeking the same peace you seek tonight. As you rest, these sacred sounds will weave themselves through your dreams like silver threads, creating a luminous tapestry of healing that works in ways your conscious mind need never understand. Feel how profoundly you have been changed by this simple act of listening, of allowing these truths to find their natural resting place within you. Not changed by becoming someone different, but changed by remembering who you have always been beneath the temporary costumes of personality, beneath the fleeting roles of daily life, beneath even the ancient story of being a seeker on a spiritual path. You are the one who seeks, and you are the one who is sought. You are the question, and you are the answer. You are the wave, and you are the ocean. You are the dream, and you are the dreamer awakening from the beautiful illusion of ever having been asleep in the gentle darkness of your sanctuary, surrounded by the infinite love that has guided our contemplation. Feel yourself cradled by the same tenderness that rocks babies to sleep, that turns flowers toward the sun, that draws rivers to the sea without effort or urgency. The Dharma, the teaching, the truth, the natural law of awakening is not something foreign that you have learned tonight, but something intimate that you have remembered. It flows through your being like breath flows through your lungs, like blood flows through your veins, like love flows through an open heart that has finally stopped resisting its own infinite nature. Every tradition has its own names for this recognition. The kingdom of heaven that is within you, the Atman that is identical to Brahman, the Buddha nature that has never been obscured, the Christ consciousness that is your birthright, the Islamic Ra that connects you directly to the divine. Tonight, these are not theological concepts, but lived reality, as immediate as the peace settling through your relaxing body, as intimate as the silence between your thoughts, as present as the love you feel for the simple fact of being alive in this precious, temporary, absolutely perfect human form. The ancient sages spoke of three kinds of teachers: those who teach through words, those who teach through presence, and those who teach through silence. Tonight, you have been all three. You have been the student receiving the teaching, the teacher sharing the wisdom, and the silent awareness in which both teaching and learning occur. In this recognition, the circle is complete, the journey reaches its destination, and you discover that you have never been anywhere but home. As sleep begins to claim you now, carry with you not the burden of remembering everything you have heard, but the lightness of knowing that everything essential has already been received. The seeds of all. These teachings have been planted in the fertile soil of your open heart. They will grow in their own time, according to their own mysterious schedule, watered by your daily kindness to yourself and others, nourished by your willingness to meet each moment with the fresh eyes of wonder. Om Mani Padme. Mani Padme. Om Mani Padme. Let this sacred sound be the last conscious thought that escorts you across the threshold into dreams. Let it be the gentle bridge between your waking wisdom and your sleeping peace. Let it be the loving benediction that seals tonight's journey with the blessing of infinite compassion. Thank you, dear friend, for sharing this quiet path with me tonight. Thank you for your willingness to listen with your heart as well as your mind, to receive these ancient gifts with the openness of a child and the discernment of a wise elder. Thank you for allowing yourself to be touched by truths that have no owner, changed by love that asks nothing in return, blessed by a peace that belongs to everyone and no one. In whatever corner of our beautiful world you lay your head tonight, may you be held by the same infinite tenderness that holds thee. Stars in their courses. May the Buddha's compassion surround you like a warm embrace. May the Dharma's wisdom illuminate your dreams with gentle light. May the Sangha's fellowship remind you that you are never alone on this path of awakening. May all beings everywhere rest in the peace that is their birthright, awaken to the love that is their nature, and discover the freedom that has always been their deepest truth. And may the sacred mantras continue their gentle work as you sleep, dissolving the last vestiges of separation, healing the ancient wounds of forgetting, and returning you, breath by breath, dream by dream, to the recognition of what you have always been. Perfect as you are, whole as you are, loved beyond measure, free beyond imagination, home in the heart of the infinite mystery that dreams itself into existence through your precious, irreplaceable being. Sleep well, dear friend. Rest deeply. Dream sweetly. May you awaken refreshed in body, peaceful in mind, and radiant with the knowledge that you are an expression of the divine love that creates and sustains all worlds.